Unit 6 Organic Farming, Module name Crop Rotation and its Advantages. Myself, Ms. Shriveni Tari from PSS RSN College of Arts and Science. Outline of this module includes definition of crop rotation, planning of crop rotation system, and advantages of crop rotation. Learning outcomes explains crop rotation, describes crop rotation system, briefs the advantages of crop rotation. Let us understand what is crop rotation. It refers to the cultivation of different crops on a particular piece of land over time. The succession of crops to be grown is carefully designed to ensure that the soil nutrients are sustained, pest populations are controlled, weeds are suppressed, and soil health is built. So you have to have a piece of land in which you are going to add different nutrients by rotating different kinds of crops so that the fertility of the soil gets enhanced. A crop rotation will cycle through cash crops such as vegetables, cover crops such as grasses and cereals, and green manures which are mostly the legumes. The exact sequence of crops will vary depending on local circumstances, with critical design element being an understanding what each crop contributes and takes from the soil. So you have to have the thorough knowledge of the environmental conditions as well as all the crops that you have decided to plant. For instance, nitrogen depleting crop should be preceded by a nitrogen fixing crop. So whatever nitrogen will be fixed will be utilized by the subsequent crop that you have chosen. Now let us see the principle. The central idea is to have the crops themselves sustain soil health rather than planting the same crop year in and year out and then repairing soil health through fertilizers, pesticides and herbicides. Now selecting the right crops for crop rotation system. This is one of the important steps wherein the different crops are having different light, water, nutrient, air and temperature requirements. And so, a crop rotation must be designed to ensure that each crop will get all the basic needs sufficiently. One needs to consider the following factors when designing a crop rotation. Firstly, you have to choose which crop you want, whether it is going to be a cereal, whether it is going to be a vegetable, even in the vegetable, whether it is going to be the root vegetable or the leaf vegetable. First, you have to design all these things. Second, the availability of the necessary inputs. You have to assume all the possible conditions and then check whether you have the availability of seeds, you have the equipments required for sowing, for harvesting and so on and so forth. Next, you have to study the soil and the climatic factors. With respect to soil, the physical, chemical and biological characteristics, overall soil fertility, the other environmental conditions such as the rainfall, temperature and presence of pests also needs to be considered. And the last one is the types of crop. When you are deciding about the order of rotation, the crops should be complementing one another. Now, when you are introducing successful crop rotation, though different farms have their own climatic and management constraints to deal with, some general rules are to be followed. In all things, strike a balance between cash and the non-cash crop if you are looking from a business point of view. This creates a profitable and sustainable crop rotation system. These are some of the points which you need to consider in general, like deep-rooted plants should be grown alternately with shallow-rooted crops. Nitrogen-demanding crops should be grown immediately after nitrogen-fixing crops, so that whatever nitrogen is fixed will be utilized. Plants with high biomass of roots can be grown alternately with plants with low biomass of roots. Very fast-growing crops should be grown alternately with slow-growing crops, so that you compensate the time. Slow-growing crops are more vulnerable to weeds. Therefore, in a rotation system, they should be grown immediately after weed suppressing crop, so that you check the weeds. Now here we have one general scheme to explain what is a crop rotation. Like for example, you have these different kinds of crop. You have the vegetables, mainly the root vegetables, you have the legume, then the leafy vegetables and fruits. Now, if you are going for adopting a crop rotation system, you have to decide the sequence. Okay, like for example, first you decide to grow root vegetables. Okay, like for example, the radish or the beetroot, which requires lot of potassium for its growth. Now, for the subsequent season, you cannot go again for the root vegetables. Okay, so you can go for legumes. Like for example, the peas and the beans. They will be fixing the nitrogen. Okay, so there will be lot of nitrogen that will be made available by these legumes in the soil. Now, in the subsequent season, don't go again for legumes. Go for choosing the plants which will require lot of nitrogen for their growth. Like for example, the leafy vegetable like the spinach or the lettuce. So they will be requiring lot of nitrogen and that they can absorb from the soil where it was already fixed by the legumes in the previous season. Then after legumes are harvested, go for fruit plants. So they will be requiring lot of phosphorus which will be available in the soil. So you can go for growing tomato or the cucumber. So this is a general scheme that one needs to follow considering the principle of crop rotation system. Now let us look at the advantages that one will get. Firstly, there will be improved soil fertility and structure. Then next, all the diseases, pests and the weeds can be controlled. Further, there will be increased soil organic matter. You can also check the erosion. Then there will be improved biodiversity since you will be going for cultivating different types of crops. You will also get the increased yield and there will be reduced commercial risk because there will be again different kinds of crops that will be available in the field. Now, let us also look at the constraints that one may encounter while designing or while planning for crop rotation system. Firstly, one needs to have plenty of experience to work because you have to have thorough study of geographical condition as well as of the plants that you will be cultivating. Secondly, there can be problems related to diseases, insects and pests. Further, crop rotation implies the need for higher number of machines and infrastructure because each crop that you will be undertaking will be having its own requirements. The next, efficiency of crop rotation depends on geographical conditions. Specialization on a single crop is not possible. Next, the lower profits for farmers on an average. And the last one is conflicts of interest in large farming corporation. It may be the difference of opinion that differs from individual to individual. So these are in general the constraints. These are some of the references for your online and the offline reading. Thank you.